My name is Lucy Smithwick, and I'll be talking about how Clint Smith references setting to explain his experiences in life. Counting Descent is a poetry collection by Clint Smith featuring primarily topics on race and culture. There are, however, a few poems that are exceptions to this theme. For example, you have Ode to Ninth and O Northwest, On Observing My Home After the Storm, What Is Left, It Is Early December in Cambridge, and There's a Lake Here, which are more about setting and how Smith's life was affected by where he was at the time. There are also a few love poems in the collection, such as Today I Bought a Book for You or An Evening at the Louvre. I'll be focusing on the setting and how Smith was influenced by it later in life by sharing a short memoir-type story I wrote from the same standpoint, what home means to me and how it has influenced my life. Home is a word often given more of a meaning than it should have. Ask anyone who's had to analyze any text ever about home, and they'll all tell you that home isn't just the place, but it's the security or hardships that come along with the people in it. In my eyes, home is just that, a house on the corner of a semi-busy street, right behind another busier street, 2 blocks away from an urban center of town. I had to learn how to cross that busier street at the age of 8 because my parents knew I would need that skill to grow up in this neighborhood. And as it turns out, one of my first close friends lived right across that street. Take a right out of my driveway, follow the twist in the road, take the next right, carefully cross the busy street, and take a left and you're there. At that age, I didn't take advantage of that proximity, but little did I know in about 3 years I'd be hanging out with that friend every weekend, rain or shine, mood high or low, day or night. When I was 10, my piano teacher moved to Alabama. Before she left, she suggested a new teacher who lived across that busy street and back through the neighborhood. Every Monday for 6 years, I took the same route and made my way to the place where I learned one of my favorite skills. When it was light out for longer, I grabbed my green Razor scooter or walked. If it would be dark, I could call Mom. My teacher drove me home once when my parents couldn't. I got my learner's permit and then could drive myself with a parent, of course, so I drove. I probably racked up 5 hours from driving that 10-minute round trip every Monday. Every year in elementary school, I dedicated one morning near the end of the year to bike to school with one of my best friends in our families. They lived close to us, so they rode over, and we biked to breakfast and then to school. It wasn't close enough to walk to daily, so I looked forward to that morning every year. When I was 11, I went to middle school, which was even closer. The bike tradition continued because we stayed together. I always joked that friend and I would be friends forever. It's held up so far, especially since we've shared a class since kindergarten, only ever skipping 1 year. When I was 12, I realized that the school was so close that I could walk home and get home at least 10 minutes before the bus did. So I walked home. My close friend from before joined us. One winter, she had a backpack that rolled. There was an icy hill. Thus began the book bag Olympics. We slid her bag up and down the hill, trying to get it the farthest without falling over or getting caught on a rock. If it rained after school, we hung out across the street with umbrellas, waiting for either one of our parents or her dog to come pick us up. By then, the afternoon bus had vanished from our lives. Kids at that school still walk home, all because we started the trend, even now that I don't know anyone there and they don't know me. When I was 12 and a half, I stayed away from home with my school for the first time. It was then when I realized that I had found friends who loved me for who I was, and that I also missed home when I was away from it. The house on the corner of the semi-busy street, right behind a busier street, 2 blocks away from an urban center of town. When I was 13, I realized that I would soon have to leave my figurative home, my friends, for good. Only one of my 2 best friends was coming with me to high school. The 3 of us tried getting each other friendship bracelets whenever we saw cool ones to memorialize our bond. I eventually broke the bracelet that lasted longest. One of them lost hers, and the other may have accidentally thrown it out. If our history was a book, this would be a point where the reader might make an inference that losing these bracelets was symbolic of our relationship. The reader wouldn't be more wrong. In fact, we're going strong for our 5th year together this February as furl friends. They were my anchor through the rough seas of maturity. When I was 14, I went to a new school. 3 weeks before my birthday, at the end of August, I broke down. I didn't know how I could handle the changing pace of life with a school holding 2 times the amount of those from before. 2 weeks after my birthday, I arrived here, finding that it wasn't like a crazy ocean, but instead just a stream that changes with the season. Being a simple introverted freshman surrounded by cliques, strangers, and more deadlines than I ever thought was possible, I got overwhelmed. I walked the busy street behind my home many times during this year, reaching my safe haven of the Italian ice shop down the block, the security of my friend from before, and the embrace of my figurative home. Now that I'm 16, I still hold those dear, but they've matured with me. The Italian ice shop has changed to the diner down the street. The home of the friend has changed to meeting halfway and catching up on everything new. My figurative home, consisting of family and friends, has stayed the same. So has my literal home. I'm still in the house on the corner of a semi-busy street, right behind the busier street, 2 blocks away from an urban center of town. Many people have to leave a maze of identical houses, tight streets, and cul-de-sacs to get out of their neighborhood, much less to actually get to a restaurant or grocery store. Since age 4, I've had a grocery store, at least 2 dessert places, a bakery, 2 pizza places, 2 diners, 2 thrift shops, 3 breakfast places, and more in less than a 3-block walk from my house. In elementary school, whenever we went on field trips going away from the school, we'd pass a clearing of trees on the highway, and I'd, without fail, point out my parents' office, which was 3 blocks from home. I remember once when our school bus broke down on the way home. We pulled into an auto repair shop on the same block as my parents' office. It took over 30 minutes for the parents to be notified, but they eventually came to pull us off the bus and walk us to their office, which was right next to that clearing of trees. There are apartments there now. There are apartments everywhere now, which creates a struggle getting out of the neighborhood. The busy street isn't the problem, since we can cross it now. There are stoplights on every road leading out, and traffic is never light. But new apartments keep coming, and the population keeps growing, and with that, I want to leave more and more. The pull to leave home is strong, but before I can go too far, I stop myself and think, why do I want to leave? What's waiting for me in the north or France or wherever else I'm feeling pulled? I realize that I'm ashamed to give up on this place I hold so dear in my heart. This is the place that I was raised, through choir that's not from school or church concerts, hurricanes and snowstorms, ice skating on the downtown rink, the 13th birthday message that is bleached into my sidewalk, and the dinosaur race car rides from the park, and the not really in the neighborhood pool. This is my home, but home doesn't always mean the security a person finds with the people. It's the place. My house that's on the corner of a semi-busy street, right behind another busier street, 2 blocks away from an urban center of town. I attempted to write this story in the style of Clint Smith, drawing from my location and using many literary devices to get the point across. In Smith's On Observing My Home After the Storm, he includes imagery explaining all of the different effects of Hurricane Katrina on New Orleans. I tried to use imagery when describing specific directions and memories, like getting to my friend's house or the icy hill. I tried to draw from Smith's techniques of applying to the contrary, like in This Is a Lake Here. He uses the words and no many times to create an effect and remind the readers that he's not saying what a person would directly think. I included my age whenever I introduced a new anecdote to try and create this effect of making a point, but it's harder to pull off in a spoken and longer piece. I took style from Ode to 9th and O Northwest when I associated different places with different memories. For example, the memories made on the busy street in my story versus the different things Smith compared the location to, the location on 9th and O Northwest to assigning it to different people and events. Overall, in Clint Smith's poetry, race isn't the only feature that he bases his poems on. Using different literary devices such as symbolism, alliteration, and imagery to make it an interesting reading experience, Smith uses setting to call forth pictures of the places in the minds of the readers. The use of setting plus the literary techniques help explain his life and exactly how it was affected by each of these places and experiences in his life. Thank you.